Cheeseburger and sushi. It's obvious really when you think about it. Hello middle-aged men of the world. This week's episode comes to you from under the back of a 6R4. And if YouTube analytics is to be believed, 2.1% of our viewers are now ladies. So if you're genuine and not a glitch of the analytics, hello ladies. Few things to show you and then we'll be back under here for attempt number 2 to get a tune out of this horrible little thing. See you soon under here. So what's news here in the workshop? Well, not a lot to be honest, because we're all volunteers and sometimes you get a lot of us and sometimes you get none of us. And John's had a few things to deal with this week and I've been away, so we've not done a great deal. However, we do have the patch ready to build in the Sill. That patch goes down the join and along the bottom and up the other side, and it also goes underneath. None of it will be seen when it's finished because the plastic sill and the plastic roof go over the top of it and it will be very, very strong. On the inside there's an attachment along the bottom which will go down with 4mm rivets. Then there is one of the original stiffeners. There's another one at that side. These are what came out of the sill. They're going to be slightly modified with an extra flange to bridge the gap and put back in a slightly different position so we can get fresh rivet holes. But the inside will have its original stiffeners, some extra parts to span the gap, an attachment at the bottom, lots of glue. I think that ought to be enough. And it's a little bit of a throwback to the Bluebird days. Bluebird was built by a firm of bus builders. And when we took it apart, it was rough. And we didn't want to put it back as rough as that. We wanted to improve on it. And we put a lot of elegant little fixes in, a lot like this. And it's now better than ever it was. This is just rough. And we're not trying to sugarcoat this one. You've just seen how rough it is. We had a lot of romantics got a look at Bluebird and went, oh, don't disrespect the skipper's boat. And there was Campbell on about, you know, advanced engineering, rocketry and what have you. And it was more what have you than anything. So we put a lot of very elegant repairs into there. Not so much here, but this is a bit of a throwback to how we built a lot of Bluebird. So we'll get that built and we'll get that glued and riveted and that'll be on its way. And because it's been a quiet week, and because it's the holidays, Ems and me went on one of our road trips. We do this quite a lot. You know, you have family and friends that live miles away and you see them once in a blue moon. Well, we take the trouble to get in the car, drive down country and pick up as many as we can. Hello! We're going on a road trip.
Wow.
What do you mean, wow? What we're doing today, little one?
Rallycross, and then we're going to go see Clever Barry.
Yay, haven't seen Clever Barry in a while. Let's do this thing. Breakfast.
Oh.
What you got?
I got a cheeseburger and sushi.
Cheeseburger and sushi.
Sushi.
It's obvious really when you think about it.
That's great.
What else would you have for breakfast?
Nothing else, I don't think. Do you not have sushi for breakfast?
I hate this stuff.
I love it.
Yeah. And on this occasion, amongst others, we went to visit with Mr. Barrington Clever Barry Hares. Now, Barry is a model engineer, probably the best model engineer that ever lived. And Barry is famous for his 5th scale aero engines that are not just models. They have all the parts inside and they work, everything down to the split pins on the big end bolts, washers under the cam box covers that you can barely see because they're so small. And he's just an incredible guy. And I wanted a model engineer to join the Bluebird project years ago because we had lots of fiddly little jobs that we couldn't handle in-house. And I'd seen Barry's work, but I couldn't find Barry. He was a recluse. Well, he still is. And I finally found him by accident. There's a guy called Peter Grieve, Merlin Pete. Now, Pete makes full-size Merlin engines. And he was building a Griffin engine in his kitchen and ran out of space, so he moved house. And when he moved, he sent his new address to all his email contacts. And for some reason, I read the list of contacts, and there was an email address that had to be Barry Hares. So I rang Pete and said, is this the Barry Hares, the model engineer? And he said, yeah, that's him. I said, well, please could you introduce us? So he did, and he got me Barry's number, and Barry came to help us on the Bluebird project 15 years ago. And a lot of his work, all of his work, is just incredible. He can rewind magnetos, he can rebuild instruments, he's a watchmaker, he can calibrate instruments, he can put chrome plate on stuff, zinc plate, crinkle finish, the lot. Barry is amazing. And he's 89 years of age, although you wouldn't think it. And we went off to see Barry and have a quick look at his engines. What do you think of that, Em?
Very impressive.
It is, isn't it?
Very immaculate.
Clever Barry, the man himself. Now, we kept that quite short because we got to have a cup of tea and a chat, and I didn't want to endlessly interview Barry. But I'm sure we could. If you want to see more, let us know in the comments. And if there's enough interest, I'll go and sit Barry down. We'll have a proper sit down and interview with him and get all the gen on his engines. And also, while you're in the comments, please subscribe. Let us know you're out there. I always say that. And yeah, what's next? Right then, back to the 6R4. And as you saw in the last film, despite changing out the failed fuel injector, it wouldn't go. Now, I had put this down originally to the loss of fuel pressure when the injector went, because there was a lot of loss of fuel pressure. There was a lot of loss of fuel. So I took it to be that it was the loss of fuel pressure that caused the problem, but it wouldn't start. I decided to get the plugs out. Now, I've had the plugs out of it many times, and it's a bit awkward. Getting the spark plugs out is a bit difficult. This side is okay. This is the right-hand bank, because the engine is offset towards the left because the rear diff's down here somewhere. So these three aren't so bad. You can get a spanner on those ones. On this side, however, this one down here, let me get my hand in, this one is underneath the strut top, so you can't get a spanner on that one. And the other two, although you can get a spanner on them, they're all back end of this bit of structure here. So it's a bit fiddly. That one there, the aft one on the left, is by far the worst. So the first thing was to get them out, and that one there was absolutely bar tight. It was terrible. The first plug was that one nearest on the right, and I put a socket on it, wouldn't budge. Put a bigger bar in it, wouldn't budge. Got a big breaker bar, still wouldn't budge. And we know how much fun it is when you snap a plug in a head. Nightmare. I wouldn't like to snap a plug in this head. So this involved pouring boiling water down the hole where the plug lives for about half an hour to get some heat into the head, put the socket and the extension in the freezer to try and get that pulled down to absolute zero, clean the water out, put the plug on, give it 5 minutes for the socket to pull the heat out of the plug, put the breaker bar on, have a swing on it, and it went crack and it came undone. I thought, brilliant, one down, another 5 of these to go. But as it happened, the other 5 just came out. When did it ever happen to you that it was the first bolt you tried to shift that fought you? That's not in the rules. It's supposed to be the last. Anyway, got the plugs out. Ugh. Well, that might have a little bit to do with why it won't start. Ugh. I think that might be the answer, somehow. So as you can see, the plugs were a bit filthy, and I've never seen them like that in all the time I've been having this car apart and back together, and I've had it for a lot of years. I'm wondering whether some fuel went in but not a nice atomized spray that would vaporize at once. Possibly, I don't know. But I thought, well, I better get the plugs clean. The problem is, and there's a big problem, you can't clean them, or so common wisdom says. Back in the day when we had leaded fuel and coal in the petrol, and you spent Sunday afternoon decoking your Mark II Escort, and you could flood it in the morning, the plug manufacturers glazed the insulator at the pointy end where the spark is. But once we went to unleaded fuels and electronic control systems that meant you'd never flood your car again, this stopped glazing that insulator. And that wasn't so bad. But now there's another gotcha, because modern fuels contain ethanol and other additives, and ethanol likes to attract water. And if you get one of these plugs fouled on modern fuel, that porous insulator pulls in all the impurities and nasties, and it stops being an insulator. And there's nothing you can do, apparently, so I'm told. You can't fix that. Now, I've had this happen once before, and the engine would start and run, but put any load on it and it would just break down and wouldn't go. And I spoke with Julian, whose name you'll see all over the cam box. And Julian said, he told me about this and said, plugs fail, throw them in the bin. So I cleaned them up and put them back. Couldn't fix them. Put some new ones in. I nearly launched the thing through the gate post. I wasn't expecting the result. So this time I thought, well, you can clean them, put them back, they'll work. We'll just check it runs and then we'll put a new set in. So the plugs went through a lot of cleaning. First thing was they went into chemicals to dissolve the grease. Then they went into different chemicals to dissolve the carbon. Then they got cleaned with a glass bristle brush. And then finally, when they were spotless, were heated through. And I've applied a little trick that was taught to me by an old fella who used to work for me dad when I was a kid, and he was RAF ground crew in World War II. And if he had to spark up a petrol engine that hadn't run for a while, he would apply a bit of graphite to the electrode. Yes, a legitimate use for a graphite pencil. So the plugs got cleaned up, coat of graphite, and then I had to put them back, which is nearly as much fun as getting them out. Time to put the plugs back in. They're all nice and clean now. It's urban legend that the 6R4 engine is just a Rover V8 with one bank of cylinders chopped off. In actual fact, it's a clean sheet of paper design that was designed specifically for this car, with its only other notable appearance being in the Jag XJ220 with a pair of turbos and different cylinder heads. The Rover V8 is a pushrod engine. This is a quad cam, overhead cam engine, and it's a completely different proposition to the old Rover V8. That's number 3. This is the awkward one. This is torture trying to get this one in. This car was originally rallied by a chap called Alex Banyard and later rallycrossed by Richard Hutton, who tells a great story of taking his girlfriend to the pub in it and pulling 10,000 RPM, and it was terrifying. So I've said anytime he wants he can come and take it for a spin, but we might just have to stay a bit shy of 10,000. It's just a weekend retired car now. That's that down. Final plug is in the hole and down. That's all 6 plugs back in. There we Julian, name and lights as usual. Great engine builder. Him and Jeff Page, top rank. 3 on that side. 3 somewhere in there. Let's see these, there's one. Yeah, as I say, they're up against that strut top. It's that time again. Shall we see if it's going to start? Yikes. That's me in. Take 2. Plugs have been out, cleaned, prepped, put back. Engine stood with the plugs out for a few days, so anything in there should have flashed off. Fresh fuel, battery charged. This time I'm not going to put music over the monotonous cranking noises, because I got wrong for that. It seems people would rather listen to an engine cranking than put some condiments on in the form of some music. But that's fine, there'll be none on this occasion. I hear you, lesson learned. Let's see if it's going to work. Put the power on, check it out the gear, because I don't want to punt my tool chest into the garden. Pumps make pressure, and nearly. more nearly. It lives! And I need to get out of here because I'm going to get carbon monoxide poisoning. Not running brilliantly, but it runs. Spark plugs, new ones to go in. That was a bit crackle, pop and bang. But it lives. We'll get it out shortly. Woohoo! So that was a success. It lives. Not happy with it. I'm probably going to have to put new plugs in, almost certainly. Fine. And I'm going to get the injectors out and we'll get them away and get them calibrated. And I'll ask the man if I can go and watch, because I've not seen that done. And it would make a nice little film and I'm sure you'd be interested. So that's everything for this week. As ever, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I think I said that. And we will be back next week. Enjoy the Easter if you celebrate it, and we'll see you soon. Bye, ladies in Finland. I like that. Oh, I should have a wide shot of Fat Man trying to get out of here without bashing the car next door. Oh, right, nearly out. And, oh, for goodness sake. Out!